Could you recognize if someone you loved was a victim of abuse or the one causing it? Abuse often lurks in plain sight, camouflaged amidst chaos and drama. It thrives when we close our eyes to the stories we deem too perplexing or overwhelming. This is how victim stories are dismissed, and why we began this work. If I Told You is a project sharing about hidden abuses and concealed horrors happening to unexpected people in unexpected situations. Our team represents their stories to you to help you understand them better through the lens of faith and science. As you listen, we hope you think deeper, listen with compassion, and are pushed to action.
Hey there, listeners. My name is Elle, and I'll be your host for If I Told You. Throughout this series, we are going to dig into some difficult but necessary topics. Topics like coercive control, emotional abuse, and even some things you may not be familiar with, such as manipulation, undue influence, and how they are used to manipulate and hurt vulnerable people every day. At its core, this series is about human deception and the importance of seeing what we often don't want to see, but need to see. To kick off our series, I'm going to be starting with something that's close to home, my own story. It's a story of personal awakening on one end, but beneath that, it's about hidden abuse. It is a real, raw, and still unfolding story. This story isn't something I have all the answers to, but I know that it's time to share it anyway, to talk about the lessons and the questions that still remain. There's a lot I'm still piecing together, and that's where you come in. In each episode, you are going to hear my story in pieces, so listen closely. And at the end of each episode, I'm going to ask you to think about a few questions that go beyond my experience and hopefully into yours or the experience of someone that you love. No worries. I'm going to repeat these questions at the end of each episode. So listen up and start thinking as we get towards the end. Now, I want to let you know why I'm doing this. All of this is for my children.
My son and my daughters. All of this is for them and is dedicated to them. I always wanted to be the kind of mother who not only would kiss their boo-boos, but could teach them how those boo-boos came, how they happened, and how to heal, and then how to keep going. If I couldn't be there in time to take away their pain, I wanted to be able to teach them how to take care of themselves, or at least how to hold on until I could reach them. That's why I'm telling this story. It's a story of my own hurts, my own wounds that have cut so deep and left unimaginable pain. I didn't always have someone to kiss my hurts away, but to my children, if I can show you how these wounds were inflicted, how they came about, maybe, just maybe, I'll heal some of my own while helping you avoid the pain that I had to face. Many times I've wondered, what if all of this happened so that it would not happen to you? If my pain can protect you from future harm, then every part of this journey was worth it. This series is also dedicated to all the sons and daughters whose parents could not tell their story and were not able to protect them from abuse. Today, as I was sitting down to write this, I met one of these young people. I've been working with a group of students, and there were two bright young scholars who just started to open up and share stories from their day with me. The conversation moved from difficult teachers to something deeper. One of them told me about the abuse she had experienced growing up at home when she was young, and how when she told her mom, nothing was done. And I remember asking her, nothing? Like, nothing at all? And she said, nothing. And she shrugged her shoulders. I honestly wanted to scream in grief, but we had just met, so I just bit the inside of my cheeks and I said, I think I need to go cry in my car. The pain in the air was thick, but it was real. I call her Z. I know that there are many Zs out there. Brilliant kids who were abused, who were hurt, and no adult stepped in to help. So Z, I really did cry in my car that day, and I'm crying now as I write this. I hope you know that there is a mama out there who is fighting as hard as she can to say something and to do something. Maybe no one believed you when you told your story, but maybe, just maybe, they'll believe me when I tell mine. To my children, the light of my life, and to Z, and to all the other sons and daughters out there, my story is for you. May you know that there is someone out there fighting for you, doing everything she can to tell your stories and to be heard. Let's get started.
This podcast discusses serious and often distressing topics. If you find yourself in need of support at any time, please contact your local crisis center or reach out to our support resources. For suggested organizations and helplines, check the show notes. And if you feel led, stay with us through the end for a prayer dedicated to victims of crime and abuse.
For Elle, a 41-year-old mother of three, the chaos of her divorce felt like a storm designed to keep everyone's eyes on the drama. The gossip, the legal battles, the finger-pointing, it all seemed like noise. But beneath the turmoil lay something far more sinister. This wasn't just about a broken marriage. It was a carefully orchestrated distraction. The real target, her children, her life. The chaos wasn't incidental. It was a smokescreen, masking a calculated war aimed at the most vulnerable.
So about 3 years ago, I had this dream that has just stuck with me ever since. I was coming from a pretty big business event and my kids were with me, and I had a few friends who had also attended who also had children. We were going to what looked like my home. It looked like a new house. The living room was quite large, I remember, and right in the middle of this room was this massively huge tree. I mean, it was wide and the roots were thick and went deep into the living room floor. So all of the kids are there playing around and they're playing underneath like the canopy of this tree. When it came nighttime, all of the kids fell asleep on the ground underneath the leaves. Now, I was awake. I couldn't sleep, and I was just up walking circles around the tree and praying. At times, I was praying out loud, and I was talking to God about real situations that we were like actually actively dealing with at that time. I remember I was asking him about this divorce and what would happen with our family. How would our kids take it? And what would happen to me? After about 16 or 17 loops around this tree, 16 or 17 loops of prayer, is when I saw something in the tree that I had not seen before. Right in the middle of these branches was this huge snake. I mean, this thing was so thick and silent. It had wrapped itself around one of the branches, and for some reason, I hadn't noticed it until then, right when the light had hit it just right. Now, I remember I ran out of the house actually looking for someone to help me remove the snake. There were no neighbors walking around. And when I came back in, the friends that were with me had all fallen asleep as well. The kids were also sleeping, but I wasn't going to ask them to do that. I remember staying up for most of the night, keeping my eye on that snake. By the next morning, the friends that came with me had to go back to the event that we had attended. I told them to go ahead, that perhaps I would join them later. I wanted to make sure that this snake wouldn't fall out of the tree and get to one of the kids. After that point, a huge thunderstorm started in the dream. As the kids were playing, thankfully they seemed oblivious to the snake up there, but my eyes were just watching that snake, making sure that it didn't move. I'm not sure what I threw at it, but I remember whatever it was, that it hit the snake just right, where it split the snake in half. When I woke up, I knew that this was more than just a dream, that in fact, it was a warning and, dare I say, a lesson. You see, every one of our families, we all have family trees, a history, roots that run very deep. And sometimes hidden within those roots are things that we don't want to see. Abuse, betrayal, secrets passed from generation to generation, even beliefs that you may not have known that your loved ones or family has. Now, I've come to learn that some of these predators, they truly are lurking in the darkness, but some of them are hiding right in plain sight. They're waiting for the moment where no one is watching. And if we don't stop them, if we don't see them, then it's our children, the most vulnerable, who suffer. Exodus 14:13 says, "The Egyptians that you see today, you will never see again." But here's the catch with that verse. That promise is not automatic. It's the enemy that you see that you will never see again. I believe it's that God knows that if we can rightly see the threat in front of us, it's because of our nature and our love for Him, our love for righteousness, that we would make sure that that enemy does not remain. If we call evil a mistake, or we excuse it with, or I'm sure that they didn't mean it, or perhaps that's just their trauma, then that evil will return. Evil thrives in our denial. To be snuffed out, it demands our confrontation. That dream told me that if I didn't summon the courage to deal with the hidden threats in my family, then my children would be at stake, and perhaps other kids as well. When I woke up from that dream, I knew that if I didn't summon the courage and put on the endurance to deal with this hidden threat, that my children's safety and other kids might be at stake.
Elle's dream raises a haunting question. What if household chaos isn't random? What if it's a smokescreen masking a deeper, darker, more dangerous enemy, hidden in family secrets, behaviors we call normal, or the very people we're related to? Predators who thrive on chaos and distractions. They're the parent we think is so dedicated, the neighbor who seems so normal. In the community, they're often trusted leaders, pastors, or community figures. These men are like mood lights. They cast a glow and draw you in with a light not bright enough to expose the shadows they operate in. And when their light fades, it's the victim's truth that often shines brightest, a truth that can be hard to face. So, what if you caught one of these predators doing something that felt like a red flag? As a parent, would you ignore it, gaslight yourself into disbelief, or take action? Elle would soon face that very choice.
While we were still in the house, and this is maybe about a month or a few weeks before we left, I had woken up to the sound of rustling in the bed. Now, my youngest at that time, she would sleep in the bed with myself and my husband, and she was primarily on me, but there would be times where I would turn over and she would sleep in the middle, or sometimes she might sleep in his arms. And it was a routine thing where, like, the minute I hear the sound or like she's moving or something, I just automatically would get up. But this time I woke up and I heard the sound of rustling. And so I thought it was my spouse, like, passing her back to me. And so I sat up and I patted the bed next to me where he would have tried to lay her, but I didn't find her lying the right way. She was lying horizontally and her legs were tangled in the sheets around his lap. And that was when I sat all the way up then, because she doesn't like lie that way. So now I'm trying to like make sure she's not like wrapped in the sheets somehow, you know? And so I'm still trying to figure out what the sounds were. And I began pulling her to me. And that was when I could see that, like, now her legs, they're not just tangled in the sheets, but they're like on his crotch area. And so I was now shocked and I'm fully awake. And I started to try to see, was he awake? Was he erect? And literally as I'm starting to like reach over to like where his lap was, his alarm goes off. And so I grab the baby, I lay back down, and then I knew he was awake, but he laid still as if to act as if he was sleeping for a few minutes. And then he finally jumps up and he goes to the bathroom that is outside of our bedroom. We have a bathroom in our master, but he went to the bathroom that was like the guest bathroom. And so my youngest was still asleep. So I got up carefully and walked out behind him and followed him. Like, I have all these questions in my head. I'm trying to make sense of what I had just heard, what I had just felt, what I had just witnessed. And I needed to see if he was erect, because if there was this rustling sound, my daughter's legs are in his crotch area. I needed to see, like, what was he doing there? I had this, it's like there's this gut feeling where you know, but now I need to see, like, was he erect or not? And when he went to the bathroom, I'm now in the kitchen. And from my viewpoint, I can see him in the bathroom because he didn't close the door. When he finished in the bathroom, he turned around and he saw me and then instantly like blocked his genital area. And that's something he's never done before. And then he ran back into the bedroom. I started to follow him. But then now at this point, my youngest has woken up and she's asking for something to drink. And so for the next hour, I'm sitting with her on the couch and my mind is just spinning. My mind is just spinning. Ironically, that day, I had set my alarm early to get up and pray. I was doing this like group prayer with another ministry. And I don't think it was ironic that at a time when I would have been asleep and maybe missed that or not even heard that, but that was the time I was getting up anyway to pray. And so I sat with her and I was just on this prayer call and I'm just partly there, but not really, like just really trying to, and it's like, what did I just see here? Like what just happened? And so I watched and waited to see like what he was going to do. My spirit was ringing and raging. And I needed to see how he was going to respond to this. From the bedroom, he texted me saying that he wanted to talk, but he gave no reason. I sat still and I knew then that he was going to try to engage me in either an argument or something, but he wanted to see what I had seen or noticed in those minutes before his alarm went off. And I knew that with what I was deeply suspecting, there was no way you can have a conversation about this. Like, how does that work? Like, do you ask the person, did you do something to our daughter? And then did they say yes? Like, did they say yes? And then from there, and then like, what do you do? To me, it was clear something had happened and I had woken up into something he was doing, and he was going to try to find a way to like shift or manipulate the conversation. And so I just sat down there. My older two children woke up and they were getting ready for school. And because of the conversations we had previously, it was going to be his day to actually drop them off to school. And so he came out from the bedroom. They said good morning to him. He greeted them. But then when my youngest said good morning to him, he ignored her. You know, sometimes when people have done wrong, the shame of their behavior makes them avoid the person. And so with him ignoring our youngest, which is something that no one does, but he ignored her that morning. He dropped the kids off to school and he left to work. And all that day, I'm just stewing, thinking, wondering, what was this? What had I seen? By the end of the day, he was no longer ignoring her. He now flipped to the exact opposite. He bent down low. He kissed her right big on her mouth while he was staring at me. And it's in the same way that when people have done wrong, they go to a very exaggerated form of behavior with that person as if to prove, okay, I did it. And with a smirk on his face, he walked away. And I think I vomited in my mouth again. For weeks after that, I slept with our youngest in my arms. I would sleep in the living room, on the couch, on the floor. Sometimes I even would go to the kid's grandparents' house to sleep. And during this whole time, he never asked why. He never asked, why aren't you in the bedroom? He never questioned. He never expressed concern, like never. He did not say one single thing.
Abusers will often use something called plausible deniability, meaning that they will create situations where things kind of fall in this gray zone. It's concrete enough for you to know that something happened, but the kind of evidence or the kind of way that you might want to be able to talk about it becomes elusive because of how it was done. These are the kind of situations that abusers always have like another explanation for. They try to give you enough reason to try to make you doubt yourself and doubt what you saw or doubt what you heard or doubt what happened to you. They will say things like, you can't be sure about that, or you're imagining things, or, that's not what happened. They create just enough ambiguity so that when you speak up, they want you to look and sound crazy, and they want you to look uncertain and unfounded. But the moment that you do doubt yourself, you allow them to win. On top of this, they will often utilize something called the double bind. Now, the double bind is a psychological trap where no matter what you do, it's a lose-lose situation. So like, for example, like I was saying earlier, if I confront my ex that morning, then he calls me paranoid or then uses my question to now either threaten divorce or use it as a point of like public discourse. But then if I stay silent, then that's me being complicit to what might be happening to my child. And absolutely will I never do that. And so the double bind is something where the abuser does it intentionally. It is by design. It is meant to keep you stuck in this kind of paralysis of how to act, what to do. They want you to be too unsure to act, but then they also want you to be too exhausted or too afraid to fight back. And I think even beyond those two things, sometimes the thing that's even the scariest is when they don't use words or threats. It's the absence of those things. You know, when you're dealing with a situation that impacts the well-being and safety of your child, okay? Especially when you're thinking about something like sexual abuse of a young, your babies, and then you have someone, the only other person that's involved, they say nothing. Man, this is, there are so many things, there's so many words I could use to describe what that feels like, but it's the kind of thing that is maddening because all you want are answers. All you want is to be able to protect your child, but you have someone who knows what they're doing, but because of tactics, uses silence to now create this false reality, especially when you also think about in the legal system, when people involved in a case don't ask questions about something, the whole point is so that there's nothing to document or so that there's nothing to record. And so silence is about trying to make you doubt, but it's also about trying not to make a record of something. They want you, the one who knows what happened, to now ask yourself, oh, did this really happen? Am I making this up? Silence is their defense.
Covert abusers often use silence as a weapon. In their mind, if they don't talk about it, it never happened, or that the unthinkable is just so unbelievable. But even if Elle's ex-husband refused to speak, her gut screamed that something was deeply wrong, that something had happened.
Covert abuse is different in the sense that it may not be physical abuse where they're like smashing fists into your face, but they're like using their silence to beat you. They're using their silence to smash or try to smash against your truth. And they do this long enough where you start to doubt what you saw. Like, did I see that? Did that really just happen? And abusers know that if they can pummel you with silence or act like nothing happened long enough, then maybe, just maybe, the unthinkable will become unbelievable to you. But at that point, even if he was silent, my heart and my spirit knew that something was not right. Something had happened. To me, it was loud and clear, and it was not okay.
Abuse doesn't come out of thin air. It's born from patterns allowed to exist. This was Elle's first time noticing it, but was it the first time it had happened? And what else was his silence hiding? This wouldn't be the last time Elle had to ask this question. Another situation would follow. And this time, the truth would come from Elle's young daughter herself.
Next time on If I Told You.
And then she whispered words that I wasn't prepared to hear. Daddy, she whispered, did you see that in the living room where you all watch TV? And she put her head down. She said, no, in the bedroom. Child Protection advised us to stop all contact and visits. They were scheduling a special investigative interview. On his side, he had filed a motion. God, may you shine a light on those places that have been hidden. Shine a light on those behaviors that have been done in the dark. Shine a light on the actions that have been done on our children.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Before we go, it's time for Q&A time, where we ask you questions to reflect on and ask for answers that could make a big difference. Here's your question to ponder. Was there ever a time when you ignored your gut instinct about a family member's behavior? And here's our ask. Do you know anything that might shed light on Elle's case? If you have any clues, tips, or answers that could help our storyteller, please don't hesitate to share. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Head to our Wizio page at www.wizio.com/ifitoldyoushow or click the link on our podcast page. There you can drop a text message, audio note, or video response. Each week, we'll sum up your responses to the reflection question in an exclusive after show for deep dives on the week's themes. And any tips or clues you share for the case will be kept confidential. Moved by this week's episode? We don't just share stories to enlighten your mind, we aim to empower your heart. Before we close, we invite you to join us in a quick prayer for children and mothers who may be facing abuse. Together, let's lift up those who need strength, protection, and hope.
Heavenly Father God, I come before you, Lord. Thank you, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. You are Ancient of Days. Even before we were born, you knew everything that we needed. You knew everything that we would need to be taught so that we could navigate these days. God, I thank you that though painful, thank you for the strength to tell my daughter's story. And as we continue on, Lord, may you continue to bring revelation and insight for myself as I tell it, and even for those who are listening, that it would trigger something in them to wake up, to pay attention. Almighty, most merciful God, I ask you that you would open up our ears and our eyes, that you would remove every point of spiritual blindness, every point of physical blindness that keeps us from seeing the ways that our most vulnerable are being targeted. Almighty Jehovah God, every snake hiding in our family tree, every pawn of Satan, every work of darkness, every secret and latent abuse that is hidden within our family structures, Lord, I speak light into these trees. I speak light into our family trees. God, may you shine a light on those places that have been hidden. Shine a light on those behaviors that have been done in the dark. Shine a light on the actions that have been done on our children. Lord, we ask you to come like a raging fire and to expose and reveal. May you open up our eyes to see what has been there all along. And when it has been revealed, God, may you give us the courage. May you give us the strength to see. Give us the strength to listen. Give us the strength to investigate. Father God, you said it is unto kings to search out a matter. Lord, I declare those of us listening on this podcast today that we shall be like kings unto you, and that we would be able to search out the matter of any hidden abuse happening in our families and happening to our children. Lord, let your angels be with us right now, because we know that whenever you send revelation, the enemy sends a war. So let the angels encompass us right now. Let the angels protect us. Let them guard this passage of this story. Father God, I ask you now that may you be with our children.
May you cover them in every possible way. Be with my daughter. Be with all of my children, oh God, that as we speak, as I speak on their behalf, as I tell what happened to us, that Lord, I put us in your hands. May you fight for us and bring justice for them as well as any other child represented by a listener on this podcast. We give you all glory and honor. Be with us as we continue on throughout this audio. In your name I pray, amen. I'll see you next for episode 2.
Until next time, remember, your voice matters, your actions count, and your instincts are more powerful than you think. Till next time.